Hello and welcome to the Mastering the Hustle interview series. I'm your host, Joel Calkins, and today I'm joined with Russ Whitman, who is the founder and CEO of Nodesource. Russ, thank you so much for joining us. Would you like to kick us off with a brief background on who you are and what it is you do?
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Good to spend some time with you. Appreciate you inviting me on. I'm the epitome of a serial entrepreneur. I've been started my first, we called them internet-enabled companies back in '95. That was my dive into this digital space. So I had a chance to watch the sort of pre .com, Web 2 to cloud, mobile, Web 3 now, and obviously the AI movement. So it's been awesome. It's been a fantastic ride. Um, I at NodeSource is is a really deep tech telemetry and observability platform company that serves Node.js, which if you're not a dev, you would be like, I think I've heard of that, but I don't know what it is. But it powers over 30 million websites on the web, and it's one of the most loved and used technologies. And we've got a unique product set that sits around that to help developers and companies be much more efficient and effective utilizing that technology. And we dove into the AI space last year. We launched our first Copilot around Node.js last fall, and it's been a really exciting run with that team, which is a global team. So it's the first time I've been in a startup that's basically, very few people in the US. We're completely distributed and have been since we kicked this thing off in 2019.
Awesome. You mentioned you're a serial entrepreneur and you've been doing this for quite a while, starting up different companies. So take us back a little bit. What caused you to want to go the entrepreneurial route? Why not just, get a job at a big tech company and call it good?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's times where I've wondered, why didn't I just do that? But I think, there's a couple of things. First of all, I just growing up, watching my dad and my family. My dad was an amazing salesperson, sold yellow pages, so I really understood how to use the yellow pages. Some people listening to this won't even know what those are. But I just saw the ability to strike out on your own and figure things out, even though he worked for a big company, Ma Bell and so forth. But just that entrepreneurial spirit was really active in him. And it just always caught me. I was always, thinking of ideas, and I was always I guess, the idea guy. And funny enough, my plan was to do it in the car business. I loved cars and was going to go start up my own car shop. And then in '95, I found the internet and realized everything was going to change. And so I within a year, I started my first internet company. But it was early 2000s when I realized how easy it was to actually start companies. And the fear had gone. I'd done enough. I'd done some interesting things, and I built up, sort of figured out I could hit big league pitching was sort of the way I thought about it.
Mhm.
And then realized that there was no shame in failure and killing a company. I hated it every time I shut one down. But it was always fun. So I've loved doing that my entire life. I don't know, just wired different maybe.
That's awesome. So you mentioned it's easy to start up a company, and I think a lot of people, they will noodle on the idea of maybe going off on their own for years and won't pull the trigger on that. What are some of your thought process when you debate the pros and cons of starting something new versus maybe holding off?
My approach is a little unique in the fact that in each case, instead of finding the fundamental problem, or like a lot of entrepreneurs will experience a pain and then they're going to want to fill that pain and solve it. I tend to always follow those technology movements. And so when, as an example, one of the companies we created was called Media Pops. And the idea was built off of once we had an iPod, which had a shareable playlist, how you could connect people's playlists and then build matching algorithms across those playlists without the device and without, the concept of people wanting to share a playlist versus a mixtape.
Mhm.
That we wouldn't have had the idea that came around it. So I've always looked at at how a technology can transform things and just look at it from a different lens through the technology lens rather than the exact pain point. So with that, it's basically the real problem is that the number of problems that you can go solve when you think about it like that. The real challenge is to restrain yourself from starting 20 companies, because you could have 20 ideas really easily. So then it's about really where have I had the ability to move the needle? So I'm a sucker for any movie that uses like a planet to slingshot around, the planet to get more speed to go do something,
Yeah.
because I love the idea of a force multiplier. And I've always tried to be that way in my companies, is where can I play a unique role that could actually force multiply the technology because of my network, my experience, access, whatever I have as in the hustle to grind away with.
So you talk about force multiplier, and I like that. So going back to the company that you're with now, Node.js, what do you see as the force multiplier there for you? Why did you choose that problem to solve? Or that technology rather?
Well, yeah, no. So this is interesting. This is the first one. So this is, the other reality is being an entrepreneur is that you have to change your game a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, this was an existing business that existed, been around for a bit, done some interesting things, but really we're trying to be, they were venture funded, and we're trying to be all things to all people, to meet that sort of threshold that venture financing tends to do. And I knew some of the people involved, or had respect for them, and they asked me to come help them out. So I kind of came into it differently. Again, though, I saw the technology. I'm like, I think the biggest challenge is that we're not recognizing the fact that there's this massive growth of software, and it was really focused on only enterprise companies, which we have great customers from enterprise firms like MasterCard, Visa, Delta Airlines, et cetera. But what was happening was software was becoming everywhere, and small to medium sized companies were utilizing software. And so being able to think differently about it, I think, was probably my force multiplier, looking at the problem through a different lens, maybe as a small business owner over my life, and seeing how much sprawl has happened in software. But I didn't really understand the technology very well at first, to be honest. I was around these open source experts that were really quite amazing, and they had this really strong passion. And I think that was the other thing that hooked me, is this was the first time that I didn't build the team from scratch. I sort of inherited a small group and figured out how to augment them. And that was really exciting for me personally, especially because we were all, like I said, distributed. So got folks in Colombia, folks in Spain, South Korea, the US, Brazil, all over, where all the experts for Node.js are, and working with them in that remote fashion, especially because we took the asset in 2019, 2020, everybody was trying to figure out how to be distributed, and we were already there.
Yeah. So how did you make that work? Going to a distributed model, like you said, a lot of people have been trying to make that work. Some people have kind of stopped doing that, bringing everybody back to the office. How has that worked for you, and what are some of the challenges of working in that fashion?
Again, adapt or die, right? I was a big believer in office culture. So I really worked hard to create that really, amazing moment. And I've had that moment happen a few times, and it's been really phenomenal. But I had the experience where one of my businesses was acquired by a multinational firm called Globant, and they were headquartered in Argentina, but had offices all over the world. And they were unbelievably adept at working across time zones and across cultures, using literally just Google Chat. Just GChat was like, they were constantly on GChat, constantly connecting through that. And it was hard for me at first because I felt like I was losing something I was passionate about. But I think it opened my eyes to the possibility, especially at scale. There were literally thousands of employees inside this organization. So when it came to Nodesource, they were already really big Slack advocates and believers. They'd done lots of integration, and I saw this culture built around real-time connectivity while still maintaining this importance of, I know you're in this time zone, so I'm not going to interrupt you. I'm going to have compassion and trust both ways. And so I leaned into it. So that's the other thing. You have to sometimes fit the team, not fit yourself.
Hmm.
And that's been an exciting process to go through.
Cool. I like what you said there. So I'm going to dig on that a little bit. Fitting the team and not yourself, how you had to fit your team with this distributed model. How's that changed the way you lead?
Well, first of all, I was not a Slack guy. I was like,
Mhm.
can I just pick up the phone? Can I talk to somebody? Can I go, see them? Can I? And the answer was no. So I had to build a whole new competency around the tools. And I also had to, you realize, so when you're sort of a leader that vibes off of a group setting where you work really well in that type of environment, you can sense the team's energy and you can, see somebody, tap them on the shoulder, build them up, help them out. When that's a strong point and you just don't have that, you have to be much more intentional about those interactions with people. And so you literally just try a million things and recognize at the end of the day, people are people. They
Mhm.
want to be connected with, they want to feel like they've got, they're important, that they matter. Those are the things that are really important. I found out actually, candidly, I think about it. I've talked about this a couple times, but in my past, but I realized it wasn't about me
Mhm.
more. I had to let go of maybe some of my own pride of culture building in an office and focus on how do I develop people when I can't see them every day and touch them.
Yeah. No, that's good. Often people are worried about performance of employees when they can't
Yeah.
see them and they're not with them on a daily basis. How do you make sure that you maintain the quality of work, the productivity in that model? How have you leveraged your new leadership style to make sure that you're hitting the marks that you want to hit with Node.js?
Well, you should worry about it. I mean, it's a real
Yeah.
fact. I talk, you hear about it all the time. So it's not, and it's hard. There are people that are really good at working remote and
Mhm.
single threaded, if you will. And it's a new skill for them. Now, fortunately, most of these people had already they were actually ahead of the curve for me in many of those cases. But, I think some of the other things also stay true. Again, they're just people, and it doesn't matter where they are. They want to be challenged. They want to do good work. They start from that as a position. And actually, it's about creating the space where they can do really good work, do their best work, and set sort of an organizational mindset around performance.
Mhm.
That happens regardless of whether or not you've got an in-office culture or not. I learned I didn't know that was going to be possible,
Mhm.
but we and the team was the other nice thing is, and this happens in an office culture as well sometimes, but the team also self-polices,
Mhm.
right? They want to be in a good environment too. And when they have it, they don't want to lose it. So probably the most important thing is get to a place where the team is rocking, and then they'll try to keep that ship going way more than you can even.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. So kind of going back to you as a leader, you talked about working across time zones and also respecting people's, daily rhythms because not everybody wakes up at the same time, probably works at the same time. But you as the leader need to keep tabs and make sure that everybody's, that you're serving everybody on your team. How has that changed your work-life balance, if you will, or your margins as a leader and probably a family man and somebody that's involved in your community?
I'm one of those that balance is sort of a weird thing to me because I think it's just all part of the same life. I don't see
Mhm.
them as there's not this time. I've never had it where this is when I go to work and this is when I'm not at work.
Yeah.
Because even when I'm at work, if my family needs me, like that's important. If I've got,
Yeah.
so I sort of need both to be super flexible.
Hmm.
So I've had that as a backdrop. And so when people strive for work-life balance, that's, I think the challenge for me is always been to work, not overwork, not to actually know when to take a break and pause.
Mhm.
So that's been me. But the other reality when you're dealing with a distributed team is the responsibility shifts a bit. I'm looking for the team to let me know when they need me
Mm.
versus me, where I would in the past in an office, I'd, literally be scanning the floor, I'd be ducking in and out of meetings, I'd be sensing the vibe. It doesn't exist anymore. So you need to create, the space where they feel safe to reach out on anything. And that's not easy, right? That's, especially when there's a bunch of people that where English is their second language. And so we're dealing with language barriers at times. But you do it because, and you just have to commit to it. That's the other thing. I think the commitment process was once you make the commitment to doing it, you're going to make the investment of time.
Yeah. And have you found that works? Do people reach out to you and get the help they need from you when they need it?
Most often they do, but they also, it's not also on me. That's the other thing about distributed teams is you also have to have distributed leadership. And so I've got
Mhm.
some really great people that are in the business that it's not all on my shoulders. And, again, that's maybe that recollection that it's not about me. It's about, serving the team, which I've always felt, but it's been more prevalent as an intentionality in this role.
No, that's great. Um, so I got a question for you related back to what you said earlier around moving from an enterprise focused company to maybe diversifying into small and medium sized businesses. And how have you made those shifts to new markets when you're looking at the future of Node.js? When do you make the decision, okay, I need to enter a new space?
Yeah. Well, we're doing it right now. So it's a great question because it's top of mind. Most of our customers have been North American customers. We serve the developers and the open source community and the ecosystem, which means you've got, every part of the globe is utilizing Node.js. And so we get touched in that space for help and support, and we're constantly engaging at that level. But from a business perspective, we've been, mostly focused just on North America. We've had some clients in some other areas, but the for me, it's always been about can I meet the needs versus just take the revenue?
Mhm.
Because the minute, like the first thing we did when we came into the asset, I just flew around. Fortunately, it was right before COVID hit, so I could actually fly around and just go meet with every customer because that was the way that I could make sure that we were going to be able to provide value. And the biggest challenge is how do you extend yourself? How can you actually meet the promise in another area? So we're looking at Europe. We've been getting a lot of interest from Europe, and we're trying to find ways to partner so that we can actually meet the need. So we're hesitant about it because the quality of our experience that our customers have is everything with us. So it's it's that battle of chasing, the growth side compared to can I really meet the need?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, so you mentioned you're looking at moving and expanding into Europe. Could you share a little bit with us your future plans for Node.js? In addition to expanding continents, if you will, like
Yeah.
what are your thoughts? Where's it going to go?
So I have a thesis about
Mhm.
software development. I've been building software for, a really long time. And the problem is software is hard. It's complex. It's really complicated. It takes a lot of time. You start with an idea, then you might build some software. You're going to test it. You're going to deploy it into the system, and there's lots of steps in, micro steps along there. So a lot goes on from the design and the planning and all the project management, but it's expensive. It takes a really long time. And then once it goes live and you've got this, you're excited about taking your project live, and this because of your experience, you've seen
Yeah,
this exact same thing. Then you find out where it's broken. You really find out where it's broken once it's
yeah,
in production, right?
for
And
sure.
broken both from an expectation perspective on your users or um, just from bugs in the machine that you could have never seen. And that's what's great about our technology is that we actually see what's happening in production.
Mhm.
And so to us, and my belief is that is the purest knowledge of how your product actually is designed to perform. So then what do? You triage issues, you remediate them, and then you build some more software and you put it back in the cycle and you go back into the loop again until there's another set of issues. And there's always issues because it's software.
Right.
We're AI and generative AI specifically is creating a new base for us to be able to think about software. We're already seeing rapid acceleration through code generation, product management, tooling, all kinds of things that can accelerate that front side of the process. And we think it's really powerful. We're using those tools ourselves and diving in to accelerate our capabilities, augment our staff.
Yeah.
But we see this opportunity of solving it from the backside. The problem is you still have the same fundamental problem, even if you're generating code based upon, all the existing millions of lines of code that have existed out there. The exact use of that code and how it plays in production is the litmus test of its strength and integrity. We have the unique and most robust data about what happens in production around Node.js specifically. And so we see a model where the backside, the production side, is actually feeding empirical data back into the system and ultimately generating code that can go back into the system. And of course, it'll be validated and vetted by developers and testers. But instead of having to pinpoint 5 or 6 areas of issue and where are their echoes and so if you have the explicit code detail on the front side and what you're trying to accomplish with it and the right information on the backside, you could actually regenerate that code and create that sort of, I keep drawing this infinity loop, but that's what kind of happens. We change the cycle of software development, compressing it so much and bringing more value, and probably not building less software, but much more, because you've now democratized the entire experience, both from the front end and in production. And so we believe we're playing that role in the production side code to provide that telemetry around performance and security live, and on how it's actually being used to feed back into the loop.
Yeah, I imagine the speed of getting new software out there, improved software out there, is so much faster with what you
So much faster.
Oh, that's amazing.
And think about how many brands have been destroyed from bad product releases, right? We don't see fail whales on Twitter anymore, but that was like a real thing for the longest time. Like it just would crash all the time, but it still happens. When you're on a website or a commerce website, it's just spinning, wheel, and you're like, I don't know, maybe I'll go to the other, shopping site, right? So, software is an extension of trust from the brand, in my opinion. And so if you can increase the quality of that and the speed of which you solve those issues dramatically, we think there's a big win there.
That's a huge win. Absolutely. So Russ, I got one more question for you. Going back to the teams a little bit, often leaders, CEOs, business owners are always trying to get the right mix of people and the right systems to be successful. If someone were to think about restructuring the way they manage their team or how they lead a team, restructured or otherwise, or distributed or otherwise, what advice would you give to them as they're rethinking how they form the team?
Well, there's two parts there. Maybe it's a bit like the software conversation we had. There's the development of the team, and then there's what's happening in production with the team.
Yep.
So building a team, it's interesting. Some people would say that you got to find the smartest people. I want to find the people that are willing to care the most. Because at some point, if they're super smart, but they just don't have and it goes beyond passion, right? It's actually, I care. I take it personally if my work product does not meet a standard.
Yeah.
Now that's hard to validate up front, but you can ask a lot of questions. But if you don't have enough carers, people that are like, look, no, this has got to be right. And we've all experienced it. Like when you go to a restaurant or a hotel or anything, you know exactly who is that person. They just care more than the others. And if you don't have enough of them, you can't have enough smart people or have enough of a great of idea to win usually. So that'd be my advice on the development. And then on the other side, it's the ones that don't, especially now in this business market. And I've been through a couple of tough ones. I went through the dot-com crash, I went through 08 and 09, and we've seen these, these shifts in the system. And every time it's the people that have a level of grit and grind in them that carry your business.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the last 4 to 5 years, there's a lot. We created it that was so good for so long and so easy to access to capital. There was, from an employee perspective, everybody wanted to hire you.
Mhm.
You had your compensation, especially in information data workers, went really sky high.
Yeah.
It was easy almost, right? And so if they don't have that grit and drive, you fail. And so finding folks that actually can handle the challenge and the pain, that sounds bad, but if you don't have enough of those in production, you're also going to lose because
Yeah.
the market just is not going to care whether or not you're a kind company. They want you to be, but they really
Sure.
care that you've got some integrity.
Absolutely. No, that's a good word. Russ, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time today.
Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wish you the best with Nodesource, and yeah, have a great evening.
You too. Thanks.